All right, welcome everyone to the deep dive. Today we're going to be jumping headfirst into a topic that's honestly reshaping the entire exhibition landscape. Sustainability. It's not just a buzzword anymore, right? It's really impacting how we conceive of and build every single exhibition space.
Exactly. I mean, if you're even remotely involved in exhibitions, whether you're designing stands or actually exhibiting yourself, you're seeing this push for eco-consciousness everywhere you look.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest drivers, especially here in Europe, has got to be the regulations, which are getting stricter all the time.
Yeah, and we get it. Our listeners are busy people. They want to get up to speed on all this fast, so we've done the heavy lifting for you. We've dug into a couple of really interesting sources from Expo stand, one that lays out the best practices for eco-friendly stand design, and another from their LinkedIn page that dives specifically into how European regulations are, kind of changing the game entirely.
Right. And our mission today is to break that all down for you, make it practical. We want to make sure you come away with a crystal clear understanding of what sustainable exhibition stand design actually means in practice. Explain those European regulations that are really pushing this change, and most importantly, give you some actionable insights that you can start using immediately.
Perfect. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. When we talk about these eco-friendly exhibition stands, what does that even look like? Help us visualize it.
Sure. I think at its core, it's really about designing and building stands with sustainability in mind throughout their entire life. And that often starts with the materials themselves. So think about it. Sustainable exhibition walls. Things like recycled plastics or materials like bamboo, which grows super fast, or even eco boards made from recycled paper.
Bamboo, that's an interesting one. It does have that very distinct natural aesthetic, doesn't it? And I know I've seen reclaimed wood used to great effect as well. It's definitely not just about checking a box. You can really elevate the design with some of these materials.
Oh, absolutely. And it doesn't stop with just the walls either. Think energy efficient lighting LEDs are kind of the gold standard now.
Yeah.
And moving toward digital displays to, really cut down on all those printed materials. And of course, modular systems, so you can reuse and adapt, stands for different events.
Modularity seems huge, especially in terms of reducing waste. I remember that Expo stand article mentioned the Eco Expo in London, where they were actually using recycled cardboard for the walls. That's a pretty powerful example of minimizing environmental impact.
Yeah, totally. And it goes beyond just the environment, right? There are logistical benefits, cost savings, you name it. Like you said, less printing means lower costs. And if you invest in a modular system up front, well, you save a ton in the long run by not having to build a new stand every time.
So we're seeing environmental benefits plus some very real practical advantages. Let's dig into those sustainable materials a bit more. Why is choosing them so important?
Well, on the environmental side, it's pretty clear cut, right? Less waste going into landfills, a smaller carbon footprint for the event industry as a whole. But the economic benefits are often overlooked. These materials, especially if they're designed for reuse, end up being much more cost effective in the long term. And then there's the aesthetic element we touched on earlier. A lot of these sustainable materials have a natural beauty that can really draw people in.
Yeah, a stand that looks unique and inviting, that's a big plus in a crowded exhibition hall. So let's say someone wants to create an eco-friendly trade show booth. Where do they even begin? What are the essential first steps?
It all starts with careful planning. Choosing the right materials and the right suppliers is crucial. Look for those who are offering certified eco-friendly options and are transparent about their sourcing and production processes. And from a design standpoint, you really want to prioritize modularity and reusability. Think about how those components can be reconfigured for future events so you're maximizing their lifespan. And then the basics: energy efficient lighting, primarily LEDs, and seeing where you can replace traditional printed materials with digital displays.
Makes sense, designed for the long haul and really leverage that digital technology. But what about when the exhibition's over? How should people think about, handling all those materials afterwards?
That's a great question, and it's really key to a truly sustainable approach. You need to have a plan for the end of life of your booth materials. Can you recycle them easily? Could you repurpose elements for other marketing needs? You have to think about the full life cycle, not just the event itself.
I like that reduce, reuse, repurpose. So we've talked about the what and the why. What about the how? What are some of the different types of eco-friendly stands that people might come across?
Well, modular stands, as we discussed, are a major category. They tick a lot of boxes, reusable, adaptable, you name it. Then you've got pop-up displays, And you're seeing more and more of these made from recycled materials now. They offer a lightweight and, of course, eco-conscious solution. And then there are those spans that are built using natural materials like the bamboo we talked about, which really have unique visual appeal.
So a good variety to suit different needs and budgets. Let's go back to those sustainable materials for a second. Bamboo seems to be, like, the rising star. What makes it such a good choice?
A couple of things, really. The biggest is that it grows incredibly fast, so it's a highly renewable resource. You're not waiting decades for it to mature like some hardwoods. And then you've got recycled plastics, which are fantastic because you're diverting plastic waste from landfills in the ocean. And it's a really durable material. And finally, eco boards, which are made from recycled paper. These are great, especially for signage and wall panels.
So each material brings its own set of advantages. Are there any other, like, creative green design ideas that go beyond just those basic materials?
Tons. One simple thing is incorporating live plants into your booth. It brings in a natural element, freshens the air, and creates a much more engaging space. And if the venue allows, use natural light as much as possible. Reduces your reliance on artificial lighting. And as we said before, actively looking for ways to reuse elements from previous exhibitions is a smart and sustainable design strategy.
Absolutely. So reducing, reusing, repurposing. Okay, we talked earlier about the benefits of those sustainable exhibition walls, but I think it's worth reiterating those key advantages.
Yeah, for sure. First and foremost, you're drastically reducing your environmental impact, and that's becoming more and more important for consumers and their perception of brands. There's the potential for huge cost savings in the long run, especially with modular components. And you often get a really unique, visually appealing aesthetic with these sustainable materials. And maybe most importantly, a lot of companies are finding that they're getting really positive feedback from attendees when they make this shift. It's boosting their brand image.
Yeah, that brand image boost is huge in today's market. Consumers are paying a lot of attention to a company's environmental practices. Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about the regulatory landscape. You mentioned earlier that European regulations are kind of a driving force behind all of this. What are the specific regulations that our listeners should be aware of?
Well, the big one is the EU's Ecodesign for Sustainable Products Regulation, or ESPR for short. It came into effect on July 18th, 2024. It builds on previous Ecodesign directives, but it really expands the scope to cover a much wider range of products.
So it's like a broader push towards embedding sustainability in pretty much everything sold in the EU. What are the European Commission's main goals with the ESPR?
They really laid out a comprehensive set of aims. Primarily, it's to make sure that all products sold in the EU are more sustainable, to promote what they call circularity, so making products more durable, easier to repair and recycle, and of course, improve energy performance and reduce our reliance on natural resources while, promoting sustainable economic growth and those green jobs. It's a whole package.
It sounds like it. So besides the ESPR, what other European regulations are impacting how exhibition stands are designed and built?
Fire safety standards are huge. Across Europe, those materials used in stands have to comply with the European Fire Protection Grade DS2-D2. That basically means the materials have to meet certain criteria for how they behave in a fire, like how quickly flames spread and how much smoke they produce. And then you have the EU Waste Framework Directives, which are implemented a bit differently in each country, but generally they put the responsibility for waste management on both the exhibitors and the stand builders. So you often need a really detailed waste management plan to even get approval for your stand at certain venues.
So it's not just about the materials themselves, but also about safety and responsible waste management. These regulations are setting a whole new standard for the industry. So what trends are we seeing emerge in sustainable exhibition design, as a result of all of this?
One of the biggest is the move towards modular and reusable stand systems. And it makes sense. They're so flexible, they cut down on waste because they can be used over and over. They require less transportation, which means lower emissions, and they can be adapted for all kinds of different spaces. It's kind of a no-brainer in this new landscape. And like you mentioned earlier, Adam Expo Stand is a real leader in this area, providing a wide range of modular solutions.
Yeah, modularity just seems like the logical answer, both in terms of sustainability and practicality. What about materials specifically? How are these regulations influencing what people are choosing?
There's a huge focus on using eco-friendly materials at every opportunity.
Yeah.
So Recycled and recyclable materials are a top priority. Biodegradable materials for temporary components where it makes sense. FSC-certified wood from responsibly managed forests. Low VOC finishes, which means they release fewer harmful chemicals into the air.
Yeah.
There was a great example in Exhibition News where they talked about graphics being made from recycled marine waste fabric. I mean, how cool is that?
That's a perfect example of the circular economy in action. What about energy use? Are the regulations pushing for changes there as well?
Oh, absolutely. Energy efficiency is a major focus. LED lighting is pretty much everywhere now, and it can reduce energy consumption by something like 80% compared to traditional lighting. And you're seeing a lot more smart control systems that adjust the lighting based on whether people are actually in the booth or not, and energy efficient displays are becoming the norm as well. And though it's not a regulatory requirement everywhere yet, integrating things like solar-powered charging stations right into the booths is becoming more common too. It's pretty clear that in the next few years, we're going to see an even bigger push towards recycled materials and LED lighting across the entire exhibition sector.
Wow, so lighting and materials are really being impacted by these new regulations. But what about all that, stuff we see at exhibitions, all those physical brochures, displays, and whatnot? Is there a way to reduce that, maybe using digital technology?
Definitely. Digital integration is playing a massive role in helping us reduce the reliance on physical materials. QR codes are everywhere now, so attendees can easily access digital brochures and information. We're seeing more and more augmented reality experiences replacing physical product displays, digital signage instead of those big printed banners, and even virtual product demos, so companies don't have to ship as many physical samples. It's pretty remarkable.
It's amazing how technology can help reduce that physical footprint. So for someone who really wants to go all in on sustainable exhibition strategies, what are some of the things they should be thinking about? Big picture.
I think the most important thing is to do a full life cycle assessment of your exhibition stand. That means looking at its environmental impact from the very beginning, extracting the raw materials all the way to the end, how you dispose of it or hopefully reuse or recycle it. And you have to consider the manufacturing, the transportation, everything. Taking this big picture view really helps you pinpoint where you can make the biggest difference.
It's like a cradle to grave analysis for exhibition stands. That makes a lot of sense. What about proving your sustainability? Are there specific certifications or documents that people should be aware of?
Yeah, you want to be able to back up your claims with data. Things like environmental product declarations or EPDs. These give you independently verified data about the environmental impact of a product over its whole life cycle. You also have material passports, which give you really detailed information about the materials used. And then there are carbon footprint calculations to measure those greenhouse gas emissions and waste management plans, which outline how you're going to minimize and responsibly deal with your waste. It's about transparency, and it's what a lot of environmentally conscious clients are starting to look for.
Right. It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And it seems like collaboration would be a huge part of all this. How can the different players in the exhibition world work together to make things more sustainable?
It's absolutely essential. Exhibitors need to be working closely with venues to make sure they're on board with energy efficiency and waste management programs. They need to find suppliers who share their sustainability values. And they need to bring in designers right from the start, so sustainability is baked into the design from day one. And even collaborating with other exhibitors, maybe on shared resources or transportation, can really make a difference.
Teamwork makes the dream work, as they say. Okay, so we've talked a lot about principles and regulations. Do you have any real world examples of companies that have nailed this sustainable exhibition design thing?
Tons. Ecomondo, which is a big European event focused on, the ecological transition. They have a lot of stands built entirely from recyclable and recycled materials. And they often use QR codes to give visitors really detailed information about those materials and their life cycle. It's a great showcase for the circular economy. Forum, which is another event organizer, they actually offer carbon-neutral exhibition stands, which is amazing. They achieve this by using sustainable materials, energy-efficient tech, and carbon offsetting. And then there's FI Europe. They have a Better Stands initiative that encourages exhibitors to choose reusable or recyclable stands, and they offer incentives and really highlight those best practices. It's great to see.
Those are inspiring examples that show that you can be sustainable and still have a really impactful and creative design. Now let's talk money. What are the cost implications of choosing a sustainable exhibition stand?
Well, some people might think that sustainable always equals more expensive, but it's not always the case. If you invest in those reusable modular systems, you're going to save money in the long run because you're not constantly building new stands. And energy-efficient lighting and technology bring your operational costs down. And using more digital elements can often be cheaper to update than, constantly printing new materials. Plus, you might end up saving money on waste disposal fees and avoiding penalties for not complying with those ever stricter environmental regulations.
So the initial investment might be a bit higher for some things, but there's a strong case to be made for the long-term cost effectiveness of it all. Beyond the pure cost, though, what about the impact on a company's brand value and their ability to compete?
I think it's huge. By showing that you're committed to environmental responsibility, you're building trust with consumers, and you're differentiating yourself from your competitors, which is never a bad thing. And a lot of the bigger clients out there are starting to really prioritize working with suppliers who have solid environmental credentials. It's becoming a competitive advantage.
So it's not just the right thing to do, it's also good business. We've covered a lot today. Maybe we could finish by going over some of the common questions people have when they're thinking about sustainable exhibition stands.
Sure. A lot of people start with what even is a sustainable exhibition wall? Or, what does a truly sustainable solution look like? And then, of course, they want to know why they should choose eco-friendly options. And we've talked about those reasons, the environmental benefits, the cost savings, the aesthetic appeal, and the brand boost. They're also curious about the practical steps involved.
Mm-hmm.
How do you actually make a booth more eco-friendly? What are some examples of those sustainable materials? How do the costs really compare with traditional stands? It's a lot to take in.
I bet a lot of people also want to know how they can customize an eco-friendly design to match their branding.
Oh, definitely. A lot of people think that going green means sacrificing their unique brand identity, but that's just not true. There are so many options when it comes to finishes, textures, and design elements, so you can customize to your heart's content. And then there are the questions about what happens to everything after the event is over. Can you reuse it, recycle it? And people want to know how they can really showcase their eco-friendly choices and engage attendees. And finally, they want to know about certifications and standards, things like LED and ISO 2121.
So a lot of curiosity and a lot of things to consider. As we wrap up this deep dive, what would you say is the most important message for our listeners to take away?
I think the key takeaway is that sustainability in exhibition design is here to stay. It's not just a trend. It's a fundamental shift that's being driven by, our urgent need to protect the environment and these increasingly comprehensive regulations, particularly here in Europe. And by embracing sustainable practices, you're not only reducing your impact on the planet, but you're also potentially saving money, creating more visually appealing displays, and, future-proofing your business. It's a win-win.
And by choosing those eco-friendly materials and really making sustainability part of your process, you're making a real difference. Whether you're a small business with a tiny booth or a big company with a massive exhibition presence, it all adds up.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So here's a final thought for everyone. Think about how you could approach your next exhibition stand with a truly circular mindset. Consider every single stage, from how you source your materials to what happens to them when the event is over. Not only will you minimize your environmental impact, but you'll also be making a powerful statement about your company's values and, frankly, its ability to innovate in a world that desperately needs it.